The bucolic quiet of Amish country in Ohio isn't the first place you'd think to go when tackling a global pandemic.
Miriam Lambright lived this way in her Amish community until she left.
These weird Amish rules would definitely blow your mind. The Amish, especially their women, are known for their simple lifestyle and strict adherence to tradition. The reality is that there are multiple orders of Amish, all with different rules collected in a broad set of often unspoken guidelines known as the Ordnung. What are these rules? And how do the rules dictate the lives of everyone in the Amish faith? Join us as we unveil 20 weird rules Amish women must follow. Number 20. Education laws. While most Amish women attend school, these institutions are generally less attended by men. For both men and women, formal education typically ends by the end of the 8th grade. However, unlike most Amish women, most men continue their education informally by learning the agricultural operation of a farm, or by becoming apprentices in other trades, such as woodworking or blacksmithing. For men, learning a trade is essential, as it is the only way to support their family. An Amish woman would start teaching after 8th grade, but she has to quit it as soon as she marries. Most Amish women's lives are concerned with housework after school hours. 8th grade education for an Amish woman is both religious and practical. At the same time, the Amish people believe that what adults have learned is often alien to their religious and moral convictions. Because these women are understood to be busy in their homes and with their families, higher learning is not meant for them. What other jobs are likely available for women? Number 19. Traditional gender roles. It would not be wrong to say that there are Amish women who work outside the home or farm besides owning and operating their businesses, but they are still expected to do all household tasks and look after their families. They must also pitch in with their husbands' farm duties if needed. The husbands would probably want to stop their wives from working, as they want to keep that place as an income earner. If such a case does happen, where an Amish woman earns more than her husband, the family is not appreciated so much by the community. It tends to break the traditional gender roles and thus creates an impression that the husband is not doing what he is expected to do. However, since they don't work, how do they finance themselves? Number 18. Financial freedom. Women in the Amish community can earn money like any other, but earnings are mostly expected to be considered the woman's own. Sometimes, it is allowable for an Amish lady to bring some money to the house if necessary. Most women are asked to keep their money separate. This expectation is mostly cultural. Their husbands are co-providers. It is often considered a sign of weakness in such a husband that the wife will have more financial contributions than him, which means that he has not been very successful in his duty to secure a better future for the family. Besides that, the larger part of duties reserved for men remain in the Amish culture. Provision for a family is expected from the husband. But how are women supposed to take care of homes and children? Number 17. Child rearing is the main focus. An Amish woman is required to marry and bear children, so the rest of her duty will be solely to her family. Children hardly have sitters as far as the Amish are concerned, in which cases the person hired is related to the family or someone from the community. Children should take priority over mothers, and these mothers should do everything possible to ensure their children follow all such values and rules about being Amish. She is also expected to teach her children all those community expectations and commitments to the Amish faith. In Amish culture, a child is viewed as a reflection of what the mother has done in bringing him or her, and such philosophy puts great responsibility on her for her child's deeds and the reputation built by the action in the community. Again, what makes Amish women different from other modern women? Number 16. Organized marriages. The Amish world differs slightly from other parts, and romantic relationships are expected to end in marriage. For example, there is so much provision made for arranged marriages, and such people would strongly discourage marrying outside the said faith. Parental or close relatives immediately influence or guide most relationships within the Amish community because they say such marriages are more successful than those based on only love. Most Amish women are expected to marry while still young, given that they are encouraged to have children, as family life is central to the community. However, not every Amish woman will marry, and even though this lifestyle is typically followed, it can be tough for most women, because people will view them as not needing internal standards set by the community. Marriage is very important in the Amish community, since it ensures that faith and traditions are carried on. Here is another unknown truth about Amish women. Number 15. The bedding practices. Among many religions, some communities of Amish and Mennonites still do not allow premarital intimate relations among their very strict rules. Compared to the more modern sects that have relaxed their strict rules on such departing practices and allow kissing during courtship, these communities have still retained boundaries for boundaries. Bundling was an old practice, by which a courting couple would spend a night in the same bed but not touch each other. To prevent such contacts, the bundled cocoon of sex would catch them. Bundling essentially opened an opportunity for them to socialize without a private temptation. Now, however, bundling has become a rare tradition. What other Amish tradition looks absurd in this modern day? Number 14. Children are divine and should not be stopped. Amish Christians do not accept the use of contraceptive measures as being contrary to God's created order for life. They view all children as gifts from God and believe the size of a family is a matter of divine providence rather than human determination. Hence, Amish families usually have huge families. The average family size is about 7 children, but some families have even more. The concept that God determines family size is part of the Amish commitment to living a simple and faithful biblical life, reinforced by the Ordnung, the community's rule handbook. Big families are a spiritual and practical choice. The children are trained from very young ages to participate in household chores, farm work, and the family business. This makes possible a self-reliant agrarian lifestyle. Family labor helps keep Amish traditions and values alive. This approach varies from one Amish group to another. However, most communities agree that human intervention in the control of fertility runs counter to the will of God and does not provide for much discussion regarding birth control. What other modernity are the Amish people avoiding? Number 13. Modernity can be distracting. Amish people avoid the use of television and the internet as they think it affects life negatively. In their opinion, television and the internet can become distractions that may or may not lead one into moral decay, expose undeserving things, and encourage a lifestyle that does not meet their value of simplicity and humility. Therefore, these devices are prohibited in the Amish home, severely discouraging their use. This is a firm belief due to the commitment of Amish people to bring a life centralized on faith, community, and tradition, distanced from the temptation of modernity. Thus, the restriction is against those conveniences and entertainment that most women enjoy with their televisions and the internet. Most of the time is spent doing the usual household chores associated with cooking, cleaning, and caring for the family. However, this does not afford them the luxury of surfing the net for entertainment or communication. With no technology, the Amish spend their lives separate from the greater society, solidifying the values of simplicity, privacy, and community. Is that all, or are there others? Number 12. Horse-drawn buggies over cars. Rejecting the use of cars, the Amish deem them unnecessary and a token of worldly desires and modernity, which singles them out from the typical society they have shunned. Indeed, cars, in the view of the Amish, are a show of pride, individualism, and convenience, unlike their values of humility, simplicity, and common well-being. The absence of cars allows them to uphold their isolation as part of mainstream society while practicing their principles of modesty and discipline. Instead of traveling by car, the Amish use horse-drawn buggies. This method complements their agrarian way of life and corroborates their intention of dwelling in harmony with the environment. Therefore, the Amish horse and buggy reinforce their sense of mutual dependence and denial of technology that may upset their comfortable way of living. Additionally, what Amish lifestyle rejects modern fun? Number 11. The alcohol belief. Amish people generally avoid alcohol and tobacco and believe these substances harm one's body and soul. Women especially are charged with keeping such things outside the door. They also consider it to be against their spiritual well-being, stating that it contradicts the values of purity, self-control, and devotion. Very clear and scriptural reasons are given for this, as well as the frugal and virtuous lives into which the Amish so willingly enter through these avenues. The Amish believe that drinking and smoking exposes families to temptations that can affect both their physical and spiritual health, thus making them more close-knit, religious, and focused on their religion and community obligations. Are there other beliefs? Number 10. Buttons can be a tricky matter. It is often the belief about Amish women that they do not wear buttons. While it is not perfectly incorrect per se, the Ordnung, the rule of Amish life in many communities, does take into account that using buttons can also be viewed as gaudy, quite modern, or about the pacifistic Amish, associated with the army uniforms that these groups strictly avoid. Some Amish are content with a bit more subtle form of the button for men's clothing, including shirts or button-fly pants. Of course, if it is a button, Auschwitz is likely to resemble a hook-and-eye snap or tie closure to fasten it. These buttons will be on the dresses to some extent, but a button would only work with an appropriate fabric, with no pattern created by progressive Amish communities. While common in some communities, dresses that could be worn for every day and church occasions can allow modest buttons on workday dresses or other casual clothing, but not on apparel worn for church services. Funny? But here is another Amish dressing fact. Number 9. The white weddings dress rules. Amish weddings strictly observe the tenets of plainness and simplicity, which are not quite the norm for receptions of such large numbers. The couple usually hosts the celebration at home, often tied to an hour-long church service. The bride's dress symbolizes similar attributions of simplicity and humility. One thing that strikes almost everyone about an Amish wedding is that they will never see a bride clad in the so-called white wedding gown. The white color in most Amish communities is associated rather with a funeral because every woman going into her grave wears all white, and accessories like a prayer covering are all white too. However, some communities would allow the bride to wear a black covering during her wedding, a covering for unmarried women in the church during the wedding ceremony, and then change to white coverings during services after the wedding. The bride sometimes chooses the dress's color, but it must still be undecorated and simple according to community standards. Brides are usually expected to carry on very long traditions. For instance, Lavina Eicher wrote in the Washington Times-Herald that she wore a black dress with a white cape to her wedding, just like every other bride in her community. But is the Amish against colored clothes? Number 8. The dress modesty. Dress for Amish women reflects their interpretation of modesty standards. For example, patterned fabric and bright colors are strictly avoided because they draw attention. Skirts should touch the floor, although mid-calf hems are sometimes accepted. Usually, to church or special functions, Amish women wear white capes and aprons with their dresses. In some communities, women put on black dresses for specific services, such as communion or funerals, and may continue to wear the black color for a few weeks following the death of someone close to them. However, all the deceased are dressed in white, including a white cape and apron, and buried with it. As far as female children are concerned, they are brought up under the same rules of modesty. From an early age, they are made to practice simple and modest dressing so that it will remain with them to grow up with this practice by becoming adults. It assures the fulfillment of their roles in the community, according to Amish principles of humility and modesty. Anyways, how are female children trained? Number 7. No education on intimacy. Formal intimate education is absent for Amish children. They receive no teaching about the alterations that their bodies go through during the teenage age. Moreover, they are not taught about reproduction, or how physical intimacy works. Such topics are considered private from the Amish end. They are not meant to be said outside, especially within the family. Instead, Amish teenagers will eventually learn what they ought to know through informal peer discussion, or figure those matters out after they get married. Indications are modesty and chastity, until marriage, leading one to conclude that this private stuff will eventually be discussed when married. What are other typical indications of the Amish view of keeping life simple and free from unnecessary and bad perverting knowledge? Number 6. Faceless doll. Due to the idea that their mothers cannot gift them dolls with faces, the Amish community's dolls have found great fame outside their world. This ties in closely with biblical teachings against making false idols or images. Not all Amish dolls, however, are complete without faces. As doll maker Catherine Lengater clarified, some doll makers sometimes add simple facial features or button eyes to represent an authentic Amish doll without a face. They generally avoid dolls with faces, as they follow the instruction, "Thou shalt not make any graven image." Therefore, an Amish collector will not purchase a doll with a face, as it does not follow tradition or their principle of avoiding idolatry. Again, which other traditions depict this? Number 5. Photograph is prideful. Generally, it is discouraged for both Amish women and men to be photographed, for posing in front of a camera is considered an act of pride and vanity. Even when they can use an object such as a photograph, the Amish generally avoid this, instead making their best efforts to remain humble and simple. Self-attention goes against these ideals even through photography, so many will refuse to be photographed or avoid having their faces in pictures. Still, several Amish have differences within the community regarding this principle. Some Amish take this prohibition for what it is, but for some, there are loopholes, like being able to photograph them as long as the face is not visible. Some others will take it in a more relaxed fashion, allowing themselves to be photographed, provided that it is not posed and staged, for they believe posing is what draws attention and not the picture itself. What are the other Amish requirements for being modest? Number 4. Bonnet is a must. Amish women, who to outsiders have a wedding bonnet on their heads, actually call it prayer covering in the community. This head covering or headgear manifests their modesty and humility principles. When they go out, the women still wear a bonnet over the prayer covering. However, the prayer covering is what counts as headwear. Although the prayer covering is plain in color and fabric, it is deliberate, as putting on such is the Amish quality of modesty and humility. Nothing that makes it appear flaunting or unusual will be there. Like the Amish dress code, the prayer covering reminds one to lead a life of faith and humility, not personal distinction. Number 3. Haircut is a no. Amish women have followed a rigid interpretation of the unwritten biblical rule, which states, a woman must take it as a disgrace to have her hair shaved. So as a result, most Amish women grow their hair long and normally wear it in a bun, which will then be tucked under their prayer covering. Such practices are ingrained in their modest practices and the use of biblical records towards emphasizing natural beauty, less external beautification, as an aspect of humility. Superior long hair is said to symbolize obedience under Catholic teachings and women's status in an Amish community. It is held under prayer covering. This practice further strengthens their belief in purity and modesty without personal embellishments or any sort of vanity. Are there other biblical teachings? Let's see. Number 2. Women not church officials. Amish women are generally not part of church leadership, as their roles are biblically defined, especially as far as men are concerned. These women are simply housewives, who are quite much the husband's accomplice for spirituality and practical issues, but not usually in church decision-making or services. As Amish Universalist Lester Beachy would say, in the eyes of God, both male and female have the same value. It is simply that we have different roles to fulfill. There is the belief that men and women are equal in God's eyes, but have complementary roles, men leading spiritually and worldly, and women with the home and family. Number 1. Simple plain lifestyle. The Amish are very much plain people, and as much as they regard the term so, it serves as a badge of honor within the community, because being plain means living a simple and humble life without distraction or adornment. It also means that Amish women typically do not wear makeup, since the practice is seen as vanity and a veering away from their beliefs in modesty and humility for increased exposure to an embellished appearance. Their look is not meant to be adorned, but rather viewed as emphasizing natural beauty without enhancement through cosmetics or other flashy accessories. Anyways, which of this Amish's simple, unembellished approach to life do you find funny? And will you desire a life defined by faith, family, and community without the modern culture? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.